why did oil go below $1 and gas is still expensive? Yeah. So the way it works is people transact in what's called the futures market. And so you can buy a product in the future and book the price today. Okay. And the reason why the future market exists is because, and the reason why a lot of times when people talk about derivatives and futures markets, it's Chicago Board of Exchange, CBOE, Chicago. The reason is because hundreds of years ago, when the railroads were the most important form of transportation, when you would ship cotton and wheat and other crops from the East Coast, from East Coast time zone, and you'd ship it to Middle America or vice versa, you'd have to actually set a time and a price in the future when that product arrived. What would the farmer be able to get for that? And so you're kind of betting on and locking in a future price for it. And so a lot of companies that use a lot of oil, what they'll do is, just in case oil goes up a lot, they'll lock in the price of oil in the future today. And I'll give you an example, and I'll talk about why it went negative soon. So, and I'll talk also about the difference between WTI and, crude and different prices of oil globally as well, if that's interests you. But so there's this airline called Southwest, ticker LUV, because LUV is their Lovejoy, is their home airfield in Texas. But Southwest Airlines, discount carrier, kind of like Ryanair in Europe and Ireland. What Southwest did in the early 2000s is they realized that, oh my goodness, our biggest expense is oil. And so for about a decade or so, what Southwest did was they bought futures contracts, which would lock in the price of oil at $30 a barrel for them for the next 10 years. And so that means that they would get oil for $30 a barrel no matter what. And then oil went up to about $150. It was a super cycle in 2008, first half of 2008, because China was buying every commodity on the planet to prepare for the Beijing Olympics. And so what happened was Southwest, when oil prices went up a lot, they knew it would hurt the competition, meaning other airlines. And so they did something very predatory, which is they started cutting their ticket prices. Business is war for lots of people, but they locked it in the future. Now, what happened with oil recently, and the reason it went negative, and I'll talk about the gas pumps in a second too. What happened with oil is there was so much excess supply that wasn't being used because factories weren't working because everyone was at home because of Corona. There's so much excess supply that it would cost you money to buy it and then store it. You'd have to store it somewhere. And a lot of these big ships in the Baltic were, cost a couple $100,000 every day just to keep them afloat. They were full of oil, and you couldn't. If you bought more oil, you couldn't. Where would you put it? And so all of a sudden, people are like, "Oh my God, it's going to cost me too much to store this stuff." I'm panicking. I'm being emotional. I'm trading the futures market, and oil went negative. And it did because of the futures markets and because of storing oil. Now, gasoline's a little bit different because when you and I buy gasoline at the pump, we're not buying the future value of gas. We're buying it today. And so that explains the discrepancy between the price of oil and the price of gas, and why the futures for oil went down to negative $40, whatever it is. Now, there's different types of oil in the world. There's WTI, and then there are other types. WTI stands for West Texas Intermediary, okay, or intermediate, and it's oil from West Texas, where America has a lot of oil, and it's slightly sweet. Like some idiot must have tasted it. I'm thinking of Daniel Day-Lewis in There Will Be Blood. I taste your milkshake and your oil. So it's actually a bit sweeter. And that's important to mention because West Texas Intermediate, or WTI oil, it's usually $4 cheaper than Brent crude, and Brent crude is probably the best flavor of oil. It's the most pure. And it's basically a combination of 15 different oil fields, most of which are around the North Sea. But usually WTI trades at a $3 to $4 discount because it's sweet and some idiot tasted it. I drink your milkshake. I got to watch that movie again. There Will Be Blood. Great performance by Daniel Day-Lewis. Yeah.